don't hire people in your low class. Please check other companies. We don't deal with low lives like you. How dare you speak to people in such manner? This is so unprofessional.
You're welcome to Montgomery Enterprise. You have the job now. Thanks, ma'am.
Arya didn't leave her apartment for 3 days. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, watching the patterns of light shift as the sun moved across the sky. Time lost meaning. Morning bled into afternoon, bled into night, and she couldn't bring herself to care. The rent was due in 2 weeks. She had maybe enough savings for 1 month if she was careful. After that, she couldn't think about after that. Her phone sat on the nightstand, dark and silent. She'd turned off the ringer after the first flood of concerned texts from Sarah and a few other coworkers. She couldn't face their pity, their questions, their sympathy that would only remind her of how pathetic she'd become. On the 4th day, hunger finally drove her out of bed. She shuffled to her tiny kitchen and stared into her nearly empty refrigerator. A few eggs, some wilted vegetables, a carton of milk that was probably past its expiration date. She made herself scrambled eggs but could only manage a few bites before pushing the plate away. Everything tasted like ash. You're just a poor girl with nothing to offer. Marcus's words from 2 years ago mixed with Robert's sneer, creating a toxic chorus in her mind. Maybe they were right. Maybe this was all she deserved, to be used, discarded, humiliated. Her phone buzzed with a text, then another, and another. Arya ignored them all, returning to her bed and pulling the covers over her head. She'd been so stupid to let herself hope. Stupid to think she could build a life for herself. Stupid to entertain fantasies about a woman like Alara Montgomery ever seeing her as anything more than the help. That night, as darkness settled over the city, Arya finally checked her phone. Most of the messages were from Sarah, increasingly worried. Arya, are you okay? Please answer. I saw what happened. Robert is a disgusting pig. Everyone knows it. Please let me know you're safe. There were messages from other coworkers too, all expressing shock and outrage at Robert's behavior. But none of it mattered. They could be outraged all they wanted. Robert still had his cafe, and Arya still had nothing. She was about to turn her phone off again when she saw one more message, this one from an unknown number. Arya, this is Alara Montgomery. Sarah gave me your number. I hope that's all right. I wanted to check on you. What happened at the cafe was unconscionable. Please know that you have support if you decide to take action. I have excellent lawyers who would be happy to help. You don't deserve what he did to you. Arya stared at the message for a long time, reading it over and over. Alara had asked for her number. Alara had reached out. Alara cared enough to offer help. But the thought of dragging herself through a legal battle, of having her humiliation become public record, of fighting a system that had never worked for people like her, it was too much. She couldn't do it. She didn't respond. The days continued to blur together. Arya ventured out only when absolutely necessary, to buy cheap food, to pay bills. She avoided the neighborhood around Morningside Cafe, terrified of running into anyone she knew. 2 weeks turned into a month. Then 6 weeks. Arya's savings dwindled to almost nothing. She started looking for work, but quickly discovered that without a reference from her last employer, doors remained firmly closed. She applied for cleaning positions, food service jobs, retail work, anything and everything. She filled out applications until her fingers cramped and her eyes blurred. Nothing. She was sitting at her kitchen table on a Wednesday afternoon, staring at yet another rejection email, when her phone rang. The name on the screen made her heart skip a beat. Jessica. Jessica Chen had been Arya's roommate in college before life had taken them in different directions. They'd stayed in touch, though their conversations had become increasingly sporadic as Arya's life had spiraled downward. Arya almost didn't answer. She didn't have the energy for cheerful small talk, for pretending everything was fine. But something, loneliness, perhaps, or desperation, made her swipe to accept the call. Hello. Arya. Oh my God, finally. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. Jessica's voice was bright and warm, so full of life that it made Arya's chest ache with longing for a time when she'd felt that way too. Sorry, Arya said. I've been busy. Busy? Girl, you dropped off the face of the earth. I was starting to think you'd moved to Tibet or joined a cult or something. Jessica laughed, the sound tinkling through the phone. But listen, I have amazing news. Remember how I told you I got that job at Montgomery Enterprises? Aria's grip tightened on the phone. Montgomery Enterprises. Alara's company. She knew it was a very big company, but do not have all it takes to work there. Well, we're hiring like crazy right now. The company is expanding, and we need staff for basically every department, including cleaning services. Jessica's excitement was palpable. I immediately thought of you. I know how seriously you take your work, and the pay is actually really good, way better than most cleaning positions. Full benefits, too. Health insurance, dental, even vision. I don't know, Arya said slowly. I haven't had much luck with interviews lately. What are you talking about? You're amazing. Any company would be lucky to have you. Jessica paused. Is this about that asshole at the cafe? Sarah told me what happened. Arya, you know that wasn't your fault, right? Tears pricked at Arya's eyes. I know. It's just complicated. Look, just come to the interview, Jessica urged. What's the worst that could happen? They say no and you're in the same position you're in now. But what if they say yes? This could be your fresh start, Arya. Please. Let me email you the details. Arya closed her eyes, weighing her options. She had maybe 2 weeks before she'd be unable to pay rent. Her job prospects were non-existent. And despite everything, a small, stubborn part of her still wanted to believe that things could get better. Okay, she finally said. Send me the information. Yes. Jessica practically shrieked. Oh, Arya, this is going to be great. I have such a good feeling about this. After they hung up, Arya sat in the growing darkness of her apartment and tried to quiet the war raging in her chest. Hope and fear twisted together until she couldn't tell them apart. She thought of Alara, of green eyes that seemed to see right through her, of a smile that made the world feel less heavy, of a gentle touch on her wrist that had lingered in her memory for weeks. Arya pulled out her laptop and began preparing for the interview. Whatever happened, she couldn't stay trapped in this apartment, drowning in her own defeat. She had to try, even if it meant working as a cleaner all her life. Tomorrow, she would put herself back together. Tomorrow, she would try again. Tomorrow, everything might change. Montgomery Enterprises occupied a sleek glass tower in the heart of the city's business district. Arya stood on the sidewalk outside, craning her neck to see the top floors disappearing into the morning clouds. The building seemed to pierce the sky itself, a monument to ambition and success. Everything she wasn't. You can do this, she whispered to herself, smoothing down the simple gray blouse and black slacks she'd chosen for the interview. They were the nicest clothes she owned, purchased years ago for her college graduation. She'd paired them with her only pair of dress shoes, which pinched her toes but looked professional enough. Taking a deep breath, Arya pushed through the revolving doors into a lobby that took her breath away. The space soared 3 stories high, all marble and glass and gleaming metal. A massive reception desk curved along one wall, staffed by impeccably dressed receptionists. Business people in expensive suits rushed past, their shoes clicking against the polished floor, everyone radiating purpose and confidence. Arya had never felt more out of place in her life. The elevator ride to the 11th floor felt endless. Arya caught her reflection in the polished doors and almost didn't recognize herself. She looked thin, drawn, with dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. 6 weeks of grief and fear had carved themselves into her features. She looked exactly like what she was, desperate. The elevator chimed, and the doors slid open. Arya stepped into a hallway lined with offices. She found the office at the end of the corridor and stepped inside, where a woman sat behind a desk, typing rapidly on her computer. The woman looked up, and Arya felt her stomach drop. She was stunning. Porcelain skin, perfectly styled auburn hair, expensive makeup expertly applied. She wore a designer suit that probably cost more than Arya's entire wardrobe, and everything about her screamed wealth, sophistication, and power. Everything about her screamed competition, though for what, Arya couldn't have said. Yes. The woman's voice was crisp, dismissive. Her eyes traveled over Arya from head to toe, and Arya could practically see her being assessed and found wanting in that single sweep. Good morning, Arya managed, forcing her voice to remain steady. My name is Arya Chun. I'm here for an interview for the cleaning position. A cleaner? The woman, her nameplate read Lucy Patterson, executive secretary, let out a short, cruel laugh. You're interviewing to be a cleaner? Arya felt her cheeks flush with humiliation. Yes, ma'am. How quaint. Lucy leaned back in her chair, a mocking smile playing at her lips. Unfortunately, Ms. Montgomery isn't available right now, and she handles all the hiring personally. So, I'm afraid you've wasted your time. You can go. I was told the interview was scheduled for 9 o'clock, Arya said, checking her phone to confirm the time Jessica had sent her. It's 8:55. Did I stutter? Lucy's voice turned sharp. I said Ms. Montgomery isn't available. The position has probably been filled already anyway. We've had many more qualified candidates. Arya's hands clenched into fists at her sides. She dealt with people like Lucy before, people who looked down on service workers, who treated anyone beneath them with contempt. Usually she could brush it off. But after everything with Robert, after 6 weeks of rejection and defeat, she found her patience wearing dangerously thin. I'd like to wait, if that's all right, Arya said, keeping her voice carefully neutral. In case Ms. Montgomery becomes available. Lucy's eyes flashed with annoyance. Listen, sweetie. Let me be clear. We don't need your services here. This is one of the most prestigious companies in the country. We have standards. So, try somewhere else in your level. What exactly do you mean by that? Arya asked, anger beginning to simmer beneath her carefully maintained composure. I mean exactly what I said, Lucy replied, her smile turning poisonous. Look at you. You show up here in outdated clothes, looking like you haven't slept in weeks, interviewing for a cleaning position. You clearly have no ambition, no drive, no. Lucy. The single word, spoken from behind Arya, cut through Lucy's tirade like a knife. Arya turned around and found herself face to face with Alara Montgomery. And she never knew Alara owns the Enterprise. She was very shocked to see Alara again. It was nothing compared to seeing her in her coffee shop. She wore a charcoal gray suit that was clearly custom-tailored, her chestnut hair pulled back in an elegant low ponytail. Diamond studs glinted at her ears, and her green eyes were sharp with intelligence and authority. She looked like a power incarnate. And she was looking at Lucy with an expression that could have frozen fire. Ms. Montgomery, Lucy stammered, jumping to her feet. I didn't realize you were. Clearly. Alara's voice was ice. What exactly were you telling this young woman? I was just explaining that you were busy, and I heard what you were saying, Lucy. Alara's gaze never left her secretary. I was standing right there. She gestured to her office door, which Arya now realized had been open this entire time. I heard every word. Lucy's face went white. I was just trying to. You were being cruel and unprofessional, Alara said flatly. We'll discuss this later. Right now, I have an interview to conduct. Finally, her eyes shifted to Arya, and something in her expression softened. Miss, would you please come with me? Arya could only nod, her tongue suddenly feeling too thick for her mouth. She followed Alara into a spacious office with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of the city. The space was tastefully decorated with modern furniture and artwork that probably cost more than Arya made in a year. Please sit. Arya sat, her hands folded tightly in her lap, trying not to fidget. Alara settled into her own chair with natural grace, then she pleaded on behalf of Lucis behavior. Good morning, Mrs. Alara. My name is Arya Chin. Arya quickly said. I'm glad you're here, Alara finally said, her voice much gentler. You remember me? Arya said, surprised by coloring her words. Something flickered in Alara's eyes. Amusement? Hurt. Of course I remember you, Arya. How could I forget? The way she said Arya's name, with such warmth and familiarity, sent shivers down Arya's spine. This was wrong. They weren't friends. They'd had a handful of brief conversations. Alara shouldn't look at her like she mattered. I heard about what happened at Morningside Cafe, Alara continued. I tried to reach out, but… I know, Arya interrupted quietly. I saw your message. I couldn't. She took a shaky breath. I couldn't face it. Any of it. I understand. Alara leaned forward slightly, her elbows resting on her desk. For what it's worth, Robert Matthews is currently facing multiple harassment complaints, including one from me. I witnessed what he did to you, Arya, and I won't let him get away with it. Arya's eyes widened. You filed a complaint? I did. And so did several of your former coworkers. Alara's expression turned fierce. Men like him think they can abuse their power without consequences. I intend to prove him wrong. Something warm unfurled in Arya's chest, gratitude, wonder, and something more dangerous that she didn't want to name. Thank you, she whispered. You have nothing to thank me for. Alara picked up a folder from her desk. Arya's resume, she realized. Now, let's talk about this position. Though I have to say, I think you're overqualified. Arya let out a startled laugh. Overqualified? I'm a cleaner. You're a person with work ethic, reliability, and 2 years of consistent employment, Alara corrected. Those qualities are rare and valuable. But… She set down the resume and looked directly at Arya. I'm wondering if you've considered other opportunities. We have openings in several departments. I want the cleaning position, Arya said firmly. If you'll have me. I know what I'm good at. I know what I can handle. And right now, I need stability more than I need ambition. Alara studied her for another long moment, then nodded slowly. All right. Then the job is yours. Just like that. Arya couldn't hide her shock. Don't you want to ask me questions? Check my references. I've seen your work. I've seen your character. That's all I need to know. Alara pulled out a packet of papers and slid them across the desk. This is your employment contract. The salary is listed on page 3, along with benefits. Take your time reading through it. If you have any questions, please ask. Arya picked up the contract with trembling hands and flipped to page 3. When she saw the salary figure, she almost dropped the papers. This can't be right, she said, looking up at Alara in confusion. This is more than double what I was making at the cafe. That's the standard wage for cleaning staff at Montgomery Enterprises, Alara replied calmly. Plus full health benefits, dental, vision, paid time off, and retirement contributions. But why? Arya asked. Why pay so much for cleaners? Alara's expression turned serious. Because I believe that everyone who works for this company deserves to be compensated fairly, regardless of their position. The people who maintain our building are just as essential as the executives in the boardroom. Without them, none of us could do our jobs. She paused. Besides, when you pay people well and treat them with respect, they stay. Our cleaning staff has almost zero turnover. They're part of the Montgomery family. Arya felt tears prick at her eyes. After everything, after Marcus, after Robert, after 6 weeks of rejection and despair, here was someone treating her like she had value, like her work mattered, like she mattered. Thank you, she managed, her voice thick with emotion. You have no idea what this means to me. I think I might, Alara said softly. Then, more businesslike, can you start Monday? Yes, absolutely. Excellent. Alara stood, extending her hand across the desk. Welcome to Montgomery Enterprises, Arya. Arya rose and took Alara's hand, trying to ignore the jolt of electricity that shot through her at the contact. Alara's hand was warm, her grip firm but gentle. And she held on just a fraction longer than necessary, her thumb brushing almost imperceptibly across Arya's knuckles. I look forward to working with you, Alara said, and there was something in her eyes, something warm and complicated, that made Arya's breath catch. Me too. Arya's first day at Montgomery Enterprises began at 6 in the morning. She arrived early, her stomach a tangle of nerves and excitement, dressed in the crisp navy uniform the company had provided. It was simple, tailored pants, and a collared shirt with a Montgomery logo. The night supervisor, a kind-faced woman in her 50s named Margaret, greeted her in the basement level where the cleaning staff gathered. "You must be Aria," Margaret said warmly, shaking her hand. "Ms. Montgomery told me to take special care with your training. Come on, I'll show you around." She worked methodically, losing herself in the familiar rhythm of cleaning. Dust, wipe, polish. Empty trash bins. Vacuum. Check supplies. It felt good to be working again. To have purpose. To have somewhere to be. She was restocking paper towels in a 10th floor bathroom when she heard a voice in the hallway outside. Lucy talking to her friend on phone. "She always looks incredible." Lucy said, "God, what I wouldn't give to look like Alara Montgomery. I'd settle for being in the same room with her." Aria froze, her hand still on the paper towel dispenser. "I'm not obsessed," Lucy's voice replied, sharp and defensive. "I'm strategic. Ms. Montgomery is single, successful, and whether anyone wants to admit it or not, she's going to need someone eventually. Someone who understands her world. Someone sophisticated. Someone like me." Lucy laughed bitterly. "Everyone in this building knows Ms. Montgomery is gay. She's just never acted on it because she's too focused on work. But that will change. And when it does, I'll be ready." Her footsteps receded down the hallway, leaving Aria alone in the bathroom, her heart pounding. Alara was gay. Why did that information feel like it had just rearranged something fundamental inside her chest? And Lucy was interested in Alara. Lucy, who was beautiful and sophisticated and moved in the same world as Alara. Lucy, who had everything Aria didn't. "Stop it," Aria told herself firmly. "It doesn't matter. You're here to work, not to have ridiculous fantasies about your boss." The next morning, Alara moving to the lobby with a phone pressed to her ear, her expression focused and intense. Alara in a conference room visible through glass walls, commanding the attention of a dozen executives. Alara disappearing into the private elevator that led to the top floor where her office was located. But they never crossed paths directly, and Aria told herself she was relieved. It was better this way. She could do her job without the complication of those green eyes watching her, without the memory of Alara's hand lingering on hers. On Thursday afternoon, Aria was cleaning one of the conference rooms on the 9th floor when she heard the door open behind her. "I thought I might find you here." Aria spun around, her heart leaping into her throat. Alara stood in the doorway. She looked tired. There were faint shadows under her eyes, but she was smiling. "Ms. Montgomery," Aria said, automatically straightening. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize this room was booked. I can come back. It's not booked. And please call me Alara." She stepped into the room. "How are you settling in? Is Margaret taking good care of you?" "She's wonderful," Aria said honestly. "Everyone has been really welcoming." "Good. I'm glad." Alara moved to the windows, looking out over the city. "I wanted to check on you earlier, but this week has been—" She made a vague gesture. "Chaotic. We're in the middle of a major acquisition, and it's consuming every waking moment." "You don't need to check on me," Aria said softly. "I'm just an employee." Alara turned to face her, and something flashed in her eyes. Hurt, maybe, or disappointment. "Is that really all you think you are?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. Aria's mouth went dry. What else would I be?" "I don't know," Alara said quietly. "But I hoped." She trailed off, seeming to reconsider her words. Then she straightened, her professional mask sliding back into place. "Forgive me. That was inappropriate. You're right, of course. I should maintain proper boundaries with my employees." "No, I didn't mean—" Aria started, but she didn't know how to finish the sentence. An uncomfortable silence stretched between them. "Well, I should let you get back to work. I just wanted to make sure you were doing all right." She was halfway to the door when Aria found her voice. "Thank you." Alara paused, looking back. "For what?" "For this job. For giving me a chance when I'd almost given up." Aria swallowed hard. "For seeing me when most people don't." Something in Alara's expression softened. the professional mask cracking just enough for Arya to see the woman beneath. Warm, vulnerable, achingly lonely. "Oh, Arya," she said gently. "How could anyone not see you?" Before Arya could respond, Alara was gone, leaving behind only the faint scent of her perfume and the echo of words that would keep Arya awake.